The two coolest programmers in considerable history. Sorry, McCarthy and Knuth don't count. Posted on April 22, 2025 by Slartyblog. I had checked write this essay, which I considered perfect on the fourth try, actually much more like third, as the fourth was mere mandate that the first mention of rebel have in parentheses, pronounced, rebel, and I'm pretty much that doesn't even count. Let's get this out of the way. John McCarthy is disqualified, not because he's lacking, but because we're not ranking titans. McCarthy created Lisp, he coined AI. He gave Promethean gifts to mortals and watched them light fires. You don't put Prometheus on a list of firekeepers, you build altars to him. And besides, he wasn't even Olympian. He was older than Olympus. This isn't about titans. It's about mortals who saw what the titans offered, took it, and did something wild with it. And yes, we've also heard of Donald Knuth. We respect him. He wrote The Art of Computer Programming. He built techs. He invented literate programming. But Knuth isn't on this list either. He's a cathedral builder. He writes in stone. His work is timeless, but it's not disruptive in the geek-shake sense. Knuth is from the Turing branch. The programmers below are from the hacker-mystic branch. Chuck Moore, the prototype prophet Chuck Moore didn't just invent a language. He tried to change how programming was done. Fourth wasn't just syntax, it was a worldview. He saw it as an entire operating system, programming environment, and language, all integrated. It was interactive. It was fast. It was personal. It didn't wait for a compiler, or a build step, or permission. Fourth was designed to escape the batch processing mindset of its era. It let you talk to the machine, immediately. You could build your language as you solved the problem. It wasn't just rapid prototyping, it was language-level improvisation. And Moore didn't stop at theory. He built it on telescopes. He designed chips to match his philosophy. Even today, those who've mastered Fourth call it the king of rapid prototyping. So yes, he may have had movement-level ambition. He just never wore the costume. Moore's energy wasn't evangelical. It was inevitable. You'd see Fourth and think, of course it works like this, why doesn't everything? Carl Sassenrath, the quiet radical Carl didn't talk the philosophy. He just acted like it was already true. He built the multitasking kernel for the Amiga at a time when mainstream systems were still stumbling over cooperative scheduling. That wasn't theory, it was implementation first, visionary design. And then he built Rebol, pronounced rebel, a language that, like Lisp and Fourth before it, collapsed the wall between code and data. But Rebol didn't just unify them, it softened the edges. Rebol was small, expressive, reflective. It didn't ask you to be clever, it just asked you to see. It wasn't trying to win an argument, it was trying to show you a better shape of thought. Rebol wasn't sold as revolution, it was built as if the revolution had already happened. That's the Sassenrath way. No manifesto, just a language that quietly assumed you already knew what programming could be. Why these two? Because they didn't wait for computing to catch up to them. They built as if the future were obvious, because they were willing to throw out the defaults, not just the syntax, but the notion of what a system had to be, because they weren't keyboard cowboys or ivory tower types. They were philosopher engineers who made practical things out of impossible seeming ideas. Chuck Moore and Carl Sassenrath are the coolest programmers in considerable history, not because they had the loudest voices, but because their work still echoes for those who know where to listen. And McCarthy? Still watching from the hills, one of the old ones, smiling, probably already knew.